for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine. Philippe Melka grew up in Bordeaux studying geology, never planning to make wine, until a single university course changed the trajectory of his life. Today, he's one of the Napa Valley's most celebrated winemakers and consultants, with multiple 100-point wines to his name and a philosophy built on one simple idea. Stand back and let the land speak. Hello, Philippe, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Tim. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Are you in California?
So today, actually, I'm in Dallas. I'm doing what I would say a young game when you have to go around to trying to sell some wine those days. It's but Texas, it's amazing for California wines. I have to admit, it's probably my favorite state.
Is it?
Look, it's pretty simple. By the way, Texas have a strong culture. They're very, very proud about their state, a little bit like the French people. So I have really a good connection with them. They have actually a culture of food. If you want to scratch a little bit the surface, a lot of grilled food. And you have to have obviously smoke and grilled kind of meat and meat every dinner. But they drink a lot. Well, a little bit like the French, even if people are drinking less. But we can talk about this later.
They sound pretty good to me.
And then they spend a lot of money. They really is the first market for Napa cab.
Oh, fantastic.
They love those big cab. So it works well.
People can hear from your accent, although you speak perfect English, that you're French and you were born and brought up, I think, in Bordeaux. Great city. I love Bordeaux. A fantastic city. Any connection with wine and food as a kid? I mean, did your parents own a chateau or anything grand like that?
Yeah, Tim, it's a good question. Well, first off, the accent, it's impossible to get rid of. I spent so many years in France. Last night, even, I was talking to some folks. They thought I was just arriving from France, basically, the day before. I had to tell them that, unfortunately, I was not very smart and I couldn't get rid of my accent, even after 30 years in California. So can you believe it? But going back to your questions and Bordeaux, I was born in Bordeaux long time ago. It was a different city by then, by the way, on a side note. I feel like, a wonderful mayor just transformed the city to one of probably the most beautiful city in Europe right now. Very strong city.
And that was Juppé. Was it Alain Juppé?
Exactly. Monsieur Juppé. Yeah. When I grew up, on a side note, it was dirty. It was all the riverfront where you didn't want to go there. And people were going to Saint-Emilion, were going a little bit outside Bordeaux when they were coming for the wine business or some of the wine tasting. So Bordeaux was not good, but I was born there. And then I moved when I was about 5 years old south. So my reference of Bordeaux is strong because, of course, I spend my time going back there. Mm-hmm. But I would say, yes, we all have some favorite restaurants and some favorite kind of wine store. But I always say to the people when they ask me where to stay close to the river because, it's so beautiful just to walk along the river.
On the quay.
In the morning, especially when you're a little hangover.
Exactly. Well, your parents were wine drinkers. They weren't winemakers, were they?
Yes. None of my parents were in a wine business. There is always obviously a grand maybe parent somewhere making wine in France. But my dad come from northern Algeria, a Pied Noir, if you like we call them in France. When he was 18 years old. And basically the family, stay in Bordeaux for a while. He went to medical school. Then most of his parents and sister and brother, sibling basically move up to Paris, but he decided to stay in Bordeaux to finish his school. Okay. So then that's how he met my mom, mom's story. So that's kind of the story of the parents. And when they finished medical school, they decided to move a little bit away from the big city and work more like in a countryside. So I really grew up in a small town, 10,000 people, tobacco. Actually, tobacco was kind of the running engine of the town. You have to remember, everybody was smoking by then.
I've forgotten about that. Tell me, you studied geology at University in Bordeaux, didn't you? I mean, did you think you might make a career out of that? Because geologists, I know this, because I've got a friend who's a geologist in Argentina. They make a good living if they work in the oil industry or stuff like that. Did you think I might become a geologist, a professional geologist?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question again. I mean, not having my folks into the wine business, and basically because I was born in Bordeaux, everybody think I wanted to be a winemaker since I was 5 or something. But so geology came. I love science. That was kind of a little bit my forte, I would say. So, geology came because this sounds too a little bit cheesy, I would say, but I used to watch, and I don't know if you did too, but Commandant Cousteau, those beautiful TV shows, and I was dreaming about those people on a boat, traveling around the world, and seems to at least having a lot of fun, doing some scientific work. So I was really kind of pushed a little bit in this direction because Mr. Cousteau. And that's kind of the story. So when I finished my degree, in geology in Bordeaux, one of the teachers said, "Hey, I'm sorry to say, but it's going to be very difficult for you to find a job in your field. But, if you're interested, I have, a program focusing on vineyards and viticulture. And if you want to do a master, you're welcome to join the team." So that's, why I kind of switch, from geology to
because you couldn't be Jacques Cousteau, so you thought, "Hey, I'm going to be Philippe Melka winemaker," and you got a job. I mean, your first job as an intern during the course was at Château Haut-Brion, which is obviously a first growth. And how did that come about? Did you just apply, to everywhere, and they said yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's like all those young kids, doing those degree. They at some point you have to be on a job, learn, get your hands dirty, and a little bit of luck. I have a lot of luck basically in my life. That's one of them. I would say it was a little bit of a curse too, because not knowing a lot of wine, I had to admit, I started to test some of the maybe best wine in the world right from the start. And it was great because they kind of asked me to do a little bit of a research program. At the time, it was, people don't realize, but it was about why to basically do some thinning, remove some cluster to optimize the maturity and maybe increase the quality of the grapes. So I've done a little bit study. It was kind of fun, when it was like a different timing of thinning during the growing season, very early on or a little bit late. For the people who understand, it was like, before veraison, when the grapes change color, or mid veraison, or at the end of veraison, and see if there is kind of a better timing to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
So I have a great time there.
That sounds great. Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I fell in love more with the white wine actually than the red wine.
Amazing wine.
Yeah. Haut-Brion Blanc or La Ville Haut-Brion, whatever, because I was spending time between Mission and Haut-Brion. I have a chance to do that.
It's a funny place though, isn't it? Because it's in the suburbs of Bordeaux. I mean, I always think, someone says, "What's the way to Haut-Brion?" And I say, "Get to the McDonald's and turn left," right? But why is it such an amazing terroir? I mean, what makes it different from the other first growths, do you think?
It's boy, we can go all day on these questions. And I'll keep it kind of brief. Obviously, everybody knows that Haut-Brion is in a grave area, so it's gravel, and it was like, I mean, for geologists, basically, pretty much, river deposits at the end from the Quaternary. What I was saying, what was striking, I remember when I was kind of building this gigantic storage building, they have to dig the ground for meters and meters and meters. I'm talking about 20 meters deep. and you could see the roots of the vines going through and going as deep as 20 and probably much deeper than this.
Wow.
And it was very striking. So that's part of it. I think also, by the way, you mentioned a very good point. Haut-Brion being a suburb, it's in a city. It's around concrete. It's around roads. It's around a lot of elements who are retaining the heat of the day. And then this heat is kind of released during the night.
Interesting.
And so that's why, pretty much the Haut-Brion Blanc, are basically the first to be harvested in Bordeaux. I really truly believe that they have
because
a special
of its environment,
microclimate.
basically, in the city.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's what makes the difference, I think. Yeah.
I wonder, you're a geologist first and foremost. Do you look at vineyards and wines in a different way? I mean, there's a lot of debate about how geology affects wine structure, aroma, flavors. Is there a direct correlation? I mean, do you look at a vineyard, look at the geology, and say, "Hey, I know what kind of wine this is going to make"?
I think for me, that's what keeps me going, honestly. That's kind of the fun part of being in this business. It's really, you have a really excellent point. And I have many times been asked, look at this place and tell me if I can make some great wine. That's kind of this reflection. Obviously, it's all about the sense of terroir. As we all know, the French people, that's maybe the smartest thing they ever done. It's really focusing on the soil type, as a different soil type that they have all around Bordeaux, and to really qualify or quantify basically the quality of the site. But I think we forget, and I like to go back a little bit and maybe change the conversation. But the University of Bordeaux obviously was created, and I could be totally off, but kind of, by Mr. Ribeiro-Gaillon. And back in the 60s, I mean, before people were like, there was the pharmacist making wine, the kind of things, the chemist making wine. But by creating this university, the first thing they wanted to focus on is terroir and really bring some science behind it. So I think it's kind of important to say, but I think, I don't know how they created, by the way, the classification back in
1855. It was money. It was all based on money. It was cash. It was how much the wines were worth. But can you look at a vineyard and say, hey, I know what this will taste like?
That's the toughest part. But yes, there's a little bit of that. We have to dream, and sometimes it's very difficult to put the data behind those things. But if you wish, I've done a lot of testing based on those kind of questions. And I had a chance, by the way, to do a master who was really focusing on the different type of soil with Cabernet Franc. The focus was the Cabernet Franc grape, and why basically, those grapes are testing differently based on the different soil of Saint-Emilion on the right bank. So Saint-Emilion, the fun part is limestone, which is not in Medoc and Grave, so that's kind of unique. And then you have clay, and then you have gravel, and then you have sand, and then you have all those things. So when I talk to consumer, I'm keeping it super simple. And I say there's a sense of limestone, there's a sense of finesse that you don't really have in a lot of different wine. It's like a thin line who keep going and going and going. So that's how people kind of understand. I would say the entry of the wine is usually without like big shoulder, without big tension, but the wine stay with you for a long, long time. And that's, let's say Château Haut-Brion. We kind of also, we push that. And then you have Petrus on pure clay. Heavy clay, 70% of clay, maybe more. In a lot of places. So this is like the reverse, a big ball of tension and structure and a lot of tannins, a lot of ball of energy, if you wish. So that's how I think. And then the gravel, which is basically a little warmer soil, because the temperature of the soil is very important to understand how the grapes ripen. But the gravel be warmer, basically the grapes ripen faster, and then the tannins are becoming a little sweeter, softer, more sexy style of wine.
Yeah.
So that's the way, simplistically, I see it.
No, I like your explanation a lot. Tell me how you met Jean-Claude Berrouet, because was the legendary winemaker at Château Petrus. He's still working. He's consulting, in Ribera del Duero. I bump into him. Was he behind your move to the United States? Just tell me how you met him and how you went to Dominus in California.
Oh, another part of my luck in life. Sorry. Jean-Claude was basically, I have to admit, at the University of Bordeaux, we were conducting some testing, let's say once a month with some celebrities. And they couldn't say no. They went to use the university as well. So they were stuck. So I had the chance, to meet him during one of those testing. And then after the testing, I just went to see him and ask him about maybe an opportunity to have a job with the wax company. And of course, I mean, I'm sure, Jean-Claude has like a million people asking the same questions over and over. I had to admit, I have a little edge because obviously, I did a degree in geology, so I was like a little different than most of the other students. And so that's why I intrigued his brain, especially because, they own a wax company on Dominus in Napa Valley. And here's my connection, of course, with California. But at the time, a lot of people were saying pretty much, California offers some amazing wine. We know about 1976. The Judgment of Paris, of course, but there's no sense of terroir. And a big part of it was like because California wines were based on varietal. They were selling Cabernet Sauvignon or Chardonnay or whatever. They were not focusing on terroir or a sense of place, if you wish. But they bought, so the Moix had Dominus, they bought what we call the Napa vineyard back in, I think it was like 83 when Christian Moix bought it. The first commercial, let's say true commercial vintage was 85. And they always wanted to send someone to kind of study a little bit the site and the terroir. So that's why I got the job.
You arrived in 91, right?
So that was like, I just finished my study, my long time study in Bordeaux in 91. And that's when they sent me.
And then you worked for the Moixes in California, and then you went back to Bordeaux and worked for them there as well, didn't you? It's interesting. I read somewhere in a piece that you said that, because you moved back to Napa, obviously, to live, that you felt you could express yourself much more in America than in Bordeaux. What did you mean by that? Well, how did America allow you to express yourself?
Well, I think, I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that. I mean, all those immigrants who arrive in the US like me. You can imagine, well, first off, I didn't really have, let's say, any family kind of in a wine business. So I was feeling a little bit more free or freelance than most of the people maybe who are in a business with some folks in France. But when you arrive in the US, there's this kind of feel of, I would say, less stuffiness, if you wish. Bordeaux is you still have, people owning some estate. I call them, the king, owning this land, still like the Middle Ages. And then with the people around. And then in California, obviously, you're in a new world. There's no sense of that whatsoever. Yeah. And people give you a chance, honestly. They really give you a chance. They really push you to succeed. Yeah. Where in Europe, it's kind of a little bit the reverse.
I think it is the opposite. They want you to fail.
Yes, they really like you to fail. If you can fail, it will be great. We love you. We love, but, that would be great. If you can fail.
Yeah, so you were Dominus, then you went back to Bordeaux, still working for the Moixes, then you went back to Napa, and you set up your own consultancy business, which is now called Atelier Melka, yeah? How many people do you consult to, and in how many countries? I mean, it's mostly stuff in California, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean it's really it's like the way we created the consulting business back in 1995. I was by myself, of course. It's a business called Atelier Melka, the workshop of let's say making wine. But the way we created it was like it's very different sometimes that other consulting or other consultants, by the way, around the world, because we really focus on all the facets of winemaking. So it takes a lot of time. And that's why we wanted to focus, by the way, on Napa Valley only. You have to realize, first off, you have to I think it's important. When I first came in Napa, 91, first off, another lucky, because lucky vintage or whatever, California was great in 91. Bordeaux was terrible, as we all know. So that's on a side note. But in 95 was really the booming time of the Napa Valley, was for a lot of different reasons. And again, we can talk, for hours about it, but I'm going to be brief. But you have to realize that basically all the vineyards were needed to be replanted because phylloxera.
This is AXR1, the wrong rootstock.
Exactly, right? AXR. Yeah. So Armament rupestris, not a resistant rootstock, recommended by Davis. Everyone planted it, especially in the 90s. So you still have some vineyards were planted prior to that, were fine. But, let's say, I would say, maybe 80% of the vineyard needed to be replanted. It was maybe you can see it both ways, but I think very, I would say it's a very positive way
it was a good time to be there. And you advised on the vineyards as well as the winemaking and the investment and everything, yeah?
Exactly. So the advising was perfect, but I feel like, we were bringing a totally different vision, basically, in Napa Valley, who was already there by a lot of, obviously, precursor who wanted to kind of bring a little bit more Bordeaux. I feel like Bordeaux spirit, if you wish, with rootstock, with clonal selections, with density of planting as well.
Okay.
I mean, everything was kind of almost, that's how we created, I think, the new wines, if you wish.
In the 90s, interesting. Yeah. Right. Robert Parker described you as one of the world's most influential wine consultants. I mean, you're very good at it. What makes you so good, do you think? I mean, I like the fact, personally, that you don't take yourself too seriously. You're obviously very good at what you do, and you're a very gifted winemaker. But you always seem to be having fun. Is that fair?
Well, it's very fair. And I think maybe Robert Parker was a little bit, I don't know, off when he decided to call me one of the best one, because our bottom line, there's so many great winemakers. And again, another very lucky. Back then, it was not a lot of competition, I would say, about, consulting winemakers. Helen Turley, by the way, a lot of women when I arrived, Helen Turley and Heidi Barrett were the two famous, I would say, one consultant. You have maybe Celia Welsh, a few other ones that I'm probably missing some, and I forgot. But, I would say it was not. And then I have a slight little edge where I wanted really to bring the vineyard inside the winery, if you like, because back then you have, the winemaker on one side of the room, the vineyard manager on the other side, and it was a little lost in translation in between.
So you did both.
Not a lot of communication. Yeah. I really wanted to bring this kind of sense of, let's grow some wine in a vineyard kind of spirit. So,
no, I mean, one of the charges that's made against consultants, I mean, Michel Rolland, RIP, who died recently and very sadly.
Yeah, the late Michel.
Yeah, a great guy. A lot of people say, well, there's a Michel recipe. Is there a Philippe Melka style, or is every project a different entity? How do you work?
Yeah, this is maybe one of the most difficult questions, because, of course, I would say my DNA, or the DNA of the Atelier Melka company, the consulting company, is really to customize, our work based on a project, based on the ownership. And so we're doing a lot of interview when we start a project, which most of the time, it's really small. We kind of, specialize more like on family-owned winery. But we really want to know especially in the US, as you can imagine, where there's not a lot of history of wine, that's what those people are all about, where they're coming from, which kind of wines they like. Because you can really customize the wine. Let's say they don't own anything. They don't have lands. They don't have winery. We can find grapes who kind of match a little bit more what they envision. I always say they are the ones going to sell the wine most of the time.
So you're making the wines they want to sell, basically.
They want to sell. And then what I love to say is like, for me, I'm trying, but I know it's a romantic idea because I always still feel like I'm the romantic winemaker of the valley. But I feel like, I'm trying to create a wine who look like them almost. You know what I mean? There's really a strong connection there.
It's like this thing about people look like their dogs, right? So they want their wine to look like them.
Like the wine. That's a little bit. And so imagine, and I work with so many different personalities that there's many stories that I don't want to talk about. But people bigger than life. You have to create a wine bigger than life. People with I would say the Asian type with a lot of more purity and very restrained folks in general. So you focus on those kind of style of wine as well. So, there's a little bit of that, of course. Again, a romantic idea.
Yeah.
There's no scientific data, but I think you can really feel like even the winery, by the way, that we design, sometimes have to have a little bit of this influence.
But you always say that you don't use tricks. So you don't use tricks in the winery. So presumably you're not doing, micro-oxygenation or reverse osmosis or all those sorts of things or adding, tannins or whatever. I mean, you actually believe in the purity of the product in a sense, don't you?
Oh, you're very kind. Yeah. Hey, thank you. I have nothing to add. Just kidding. But, yeah, I mean, it's, we can go on and on. By the way, when I was thinking about what you just said, it's like the Mondovino, movie with Michel, like it was terrible because obviously they wanted to kind of push Michel to really say the wrong thing about micro-oxidation, where everybody was doing the same. That was a new trick in town. And, you have to recommend that everywhere, which was not the truth. But that was on a side note. But I would say, you do all the work in a vineyard. You spend so much time in a vineyard that we're silly to kind of just say, hey, I've done all this work. Those grapes are perfect. They're looking amazing. Oh, let's kind of go with some really technique to change all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's as simple as this. So, we try to really simplify everything by and the winemaking is really my tradition. It's very, as you can imagine, working at Haut-Brion or some chateau like Dominus, and then with the wax company. It's a very traditional winemaking. I feel like
you're French in that sense.
It's the foundation of who I am. So I want to keep that going.
Yeah, I mean, you've used the word "we" a number of times because you're a team, and your team is you and your wife, who's American, Cherie. She works alongside you. And I think she trained as a microbiologist, but she's also a winemaker, isn't she? And you met her at Bridge. Do you generally agree with each other? And what happens when you don't?
Did you ask a lot of men if they agree with their wife?
I always agree with my wife.
So, we usually drink a lot. So to be able to agree, we kind of, put us to the same level of drunkenness. No, I'm just kidding. But no, she, the yin and the yang. I had a chance to meet this amazing woman, like you mentioned, at Ridge Vineyard. Paul Draper, another, almost mentor to me, incredible winemaker, by the way, one of maybe the best in the US, of course. But I wanted to spend some time with him, learn about his technique. I never understood why Ridge Montebello, when you test it, you don't really feel any kind of American oak. How did he do that? It's 100% American oak. It's like, for me, it was mind blowing. How does he put like this kind of European flair with such American techniques? I was like, I didn't understand, but she was working for him, and that's how I met her. And then when we created in '96 the Melka Estates winery, because we wanted to be part, of course, of the current of the new winery in Napa Valley and do a little bit on staff compared to the consulting side.
Yeah.
So we kind of put together this winery. And then over the years, of course, we started with nothing. We had no money. So how did we do this? You're going to love this. And not a lot of people know it. I asked my first client to be paid with wine or grapes. So, that's how I started to use the grapes or the wine of the client and kind of create those blends to make our own brand. And then slowly they realized, oh my God, after a few years, it's taking actually a lot of money from me. So they didn't want to do that anymore. So I had to kind of tweak it to the more classic way of buying fruit. And then we bought some land. And then finally, after so many years, we were able to build the winery. I used to actually make the wine as a client, Vineyard 29, to name it, winery. And then
on Highway 29, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Vineyard 29. So, and then finally we built the winery to finish it in 2017. And so that was kind of.
So now you own vineyards, you own 2 vineyards, and you buy grapes as well, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And you've got 4 lines, haven't you? Go on, sorry.
Quickly, because we cannot go too long, but the DNA of the company is really almost like Burgundian approach. I mean, we wanted to, showcase a little bit some of the great sites of Napa and Sonoma, and even other places around the world that we find interesting.
Because you have a wine from Paso Robles, don't you, and another from Saint-Emilion? Yeah,
exactly. So we kind of basically over the years have multiple labels of smaller volume, like a lot of people, honestly, in Napa Valley, nothing new. But that was kind of the easiest way to express ourselves. Yeah. That's how we found right.
Okay.
And
I want to ask you about 100 point wines, because I think I don't know how many you've got of them. Do you keep a tally? Do you know how many 100 points you've had?
I have no idea, honestly. I mean,
good.
My style. It's not what I mean, of course, we, especially the first one, you're super proud. There's, and especially at the time where, the 100 points were so much more difficult to get. That's it's like, I don't remember how many 100 points per vintage people are giving those days.
They're huge. Your first one was Dana Estates, wasn't it? The first one.
Dana Estates, yeah. I was quite proud, because you're going to love this story, but I push those the owners to buy this new vineyard. And I have there was no history of greatness, but I have a good vibe, let's put it this way. So, and they were like, are you sure you want us to spend all this money on a vineyard with no pedigree? And I couldn't resist. I had to say yes to those people. And anyway, we got after as the second vintage, we got a wonderful 100 points. That's kind of saved my life.
Who was it from? Was it from Parker?
Yeah, it was from Parker at the time. Yeah. So,
I mean, everybody's gives scoring wines now, aren't they? I mean, there are almost too many 100-point wines, and sometimes I worry that it's journalists competing with each other to see how many 100-point scores they can give. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely living in a different era. I mean, like I said, now you have. I mean, obviously wonderful wine critic, but it's a different ball game, and people are getting confused. And the 100 point don't sell anything those days.
Oh, don't anymore.
Yeah. I remember, let's say Parker giving you 100 points, and your whole business will basically change forever. Wow. That was kind of, oh wow. I remember like businesses like 100 Acre, when we had the fax machine at the time.
Yeah.
People were spending, to get on the mailing list. The facts were going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And now?
And now it doesn't sell. People don't really know. You go around, talk to the sommelier. They they don't know. I mean, they don't really look at it. There's a little bit less that, I want to be fair. There's still maybe a little buzz going, of course, but this is not moving the needle anymore.
It's tricky, isn't it? I mean, the Napa Valley is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment. It's for Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. You probably saw there was an article recently by Ted Hall. He did an essay about high prices and the fact that a lot of the wineries are in the same lane, as he called it. In other words, they're all trying to sell $200 Cabernet. How do you make your brand stand out from the crowd? Is it doing what you're doing in a sense? Is it going on the road and being in Dallas, talking to people and doing winemaker dinners and
Yeah, it's all cool, old school kind of work. It's all relationship. You have to show your face. Listen, it's a young game, and I'm getting older and older, and it's not easy, but you still have to do it. This is not an easy, like people think, an easy job. You have to be on the road. You have to constantly kind of talk to people. I was extremely shy when I started this kind of deal, and it was very difficult, but I had to learn it. It was like, survival time. So I travel on one state. My wife is traveling on the other state, and how that we function.
And you're selling.
I'm coming back from Dallas, sell. My wife will be in North Carolina next week, and so forth and so on. Yeah. So it's selling time, and there's no way around it. It's hand sell. Those pricing have been increasing for the last 30 years. Yeah. That's how California functions. They are high. You have to hand sell your product, and you have to tell your story.
But I just wonder if the current Napa model is sustainable. I mean, how do you think the Napa Valley will look in 20 years' time? Will we have lost a lot of vineyards, lost a lot of brands?
Yeah, listen, I mean, to go quick, because this is the more important questions maybe of the day. It's like we lived the last 30 years in a beautiful era of optimism. Everybody was coming, getting excited, creating some amazing product, and then some people maybe, that was a weakness of Napa coming up of nowhere and suddenly have priced like $400 a bottle, and without any really pedigree. That kind of, rubbed a lot of winemakers and vineyards and wine critics a little bit the wrong way. But bottom line, all those pricing went up and up. Did we reach the point of no return? I think we kind of almost in a very transitional era, I would say. Is that going to be to, austerity, like a lot of period of La Belle Époque, or you know what I mean? It's all optimistic, and suddenly we reach a point where I feel like there's definitely a very difficult time. For the first time in 30 years, in 2025, some grapes were not harvested, in Napa Valley. So, of course, the reports show one of the lowest tonnage in Napa since 1999, because a lot of grapes were still on the vine after harvest. And now people are pulling vineyards and vineyards and vineyards because they don't want to take the risk not to have any buyers for their grapes. So there's I would say, a very dramatic situation, maybe for the best, because there's a lot of vineyards who have been pulled who should have not been planted in the first place. So I think the consumer will benefit, because it's all about quality right now. It's all about, focusing on quality for survival. That's in many regards.
And presumably, if you're in America, you don't get paid money by the state, or by the country, do you, to pull out vineyards? It's not like France, where there's a subvention. There's some money given to you by the state to do it, right?
Absolutely, I know. Tim, you're totally correct. That's basically it's a different kind of business. It's of course, but the growers right now are making. It's a loss decision. I mean, they're going to lose, obviously, but they prefer to have, unplanted vineyards than just to spend, money on planting and managing vineyards and for possibly not selling any grapes. That's where we stand. I feel like, the evolution, no matter what you talk about, what's going to be the next 20 years. Well, we didn't talk about, of course, the climatic change, the heat wave, all those very strong impact. We could be maybe for the next show together. But but the positive side of the vineyards could be AI. I'm seeing kind of an evolution there where you see a lot of more, I would say, especially in a vineyard, and a lot of more research to kind of, it's almost like Waymo for people who don't know. It's like those like Uber type of cars who are like driving you around with no driver. And so you have, electric tractors in vineyards. You have no drivers. The mechanization is really kind of improving. You have this kind of really strong evolution. Also will be at some point in winery for sure.
I mean, do you think we could see different varieties planted? I mean, Napa's very Cabernet focused, isn't it? Could we see more Grenache or more Zinfandel coming back, or more Verde or Carignan, or more Mediterranean varieties? You've mentioned climate change.
Oh man, Tim, you become as romantic as I am.
Because it won't sell, right?
Yes. No, but you're right. And that's a very valuable question. And, Bordeaux is doing a lot of research about, the new varieties who can really handle the heat better, who can, and that's what it's all about, who can mature better at the end under extreme warm conditions. But I still feel like the Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Cab will still be so strong. It's such a strong statement. It's like, I don't know, maybe Nike not making any clothes anymore and cars, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But so, and Cabernet Sauvignon, and especially Cabernet Franc, by the way, that's why you see a lot of more Cabernet Franc being part of those blends in Napa. The vines are amazingly resilient. And I think it's going to be more about rootstock, canopy management, irrigation management, all those things to kind of still handle those kind of extreme situations. Listen, in 2022, very quickly, we had the first week of September heat up to probably 45 degrees Celsius, but 118 Fahrenheit roughly for like a week, 8 days. We never experienced such a thing whatsoever. And it's not the best vintage of Napa Valley, but it's still a very strong vintage. So we were able somehow to harvest grapes in decent conditions. And then obviously, to use a little bit more technology, of course, in especially for sorting the grapes at the reception of the winery, and still make some kind of very good wine. So all that to say, Napa Cab might still survive the next 20 years.
So it's resilient, right? As a grape variety.
It's resilient.
Yeah, interesting. Listen, final question is, how do you get away from wine? Because I read online that you and Cherie, your wife, have your own movie theatre in a cave at the winery. Is that true?
Man, listen, you should have not said it. Everybody's going to start calling me and to want to come to my place to watch a movie. No, that's a fun place. I mean, without going too much on the detail, we have, when we have a very steep site. So to build the house was very tricky. And actually, we have a prefab. The house was built outside the site and brought on a truck. And, it's the American way where you just put the foundation and there with your home and put it on the foundation and fold the wall up, and then suddenly, boom, the next day you have your home. But we didn't have, no TV and no place for all that stuff. So we kind of decided the only way was to dig a little hole in the rocks to kind of put a little cave with
film theatre.
With some way to watch TV, if you will, a little bit when we're tired. But
how else do you get away from wine?
As always, we love traveling.
You love traveling. Is that your main escape from wine?
Yeah, we love traveling. I just came back from South Africa about 10 days ago. So my wife and I told each other, hey, we passed 60 now. We're in our 60s. So every year we have a bucket list of country we need to visit. That's how we function. And and then it's always a little focus on food and wine, I have to admit. That's a little bit of weaknesses, but yeah, that's a way to kind of get out of Napa Valley.
Well, that sounds great. Listen, I bumped into you in Chile last year, so I hope to see you in Chile again soon, maybe in France or in Napa or even in South Africa. Who knows? Anyway, Philippe, it's been great talking to you. I knew we'd have fun, and we did have fun. So I'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you, Tim. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that was fun. I love Philippe's humility and sense of humour, as well as his approach to wine. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is Marta Casas from Pérez Balta in Catalonia. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @TimAtkin and on Instagram @TimAtkinMW. See you next week.